How's it going, everyone? Today we're going to be breaking down the setup and gameplay of the two best Warwick top players in the world at the moment. Now, this is definitely a champion that I underestimated for the longest time. It wasn't until I reviewed how this guy managed to get so high challenger for so many seasons on this champion that I realized how broken it can be in the right hands. Now, I don't really say that very often, but this is definitely a champion that I believe is overpowered in the early lane, probably one of the strongest melee champions in laning phase for top lane. So we're going to be breaking down the runes, items, everything he builds, and how he performs so well, especially in the early game on this champion. So if that sounds good to you, then let's get started. Starting off with the runes. Now, the runes are pretty straightforward on this champion. He takes the exact same rune page every single game, every matchup, no matter what. You're going to be running Lethal Tempo with Presence of Mind, Legend Alacrity, and Last Stand with Second Wind and Revitalize. Now, Revitalize is really OP on this champion, definitely need that. And you may be wondering, should I take Bone Plating versus champions like Jax or Riven? But because this champion relies heavily on sustaining, especially from low HP, you're going to be taking Second Wind regardless of the matchup, even versus strong all-in lanes. Now, as for the summoner spells, again, very similar every game. You're going to be taking Barrier and Flash in the majority of your matchups. You'll probably run up against a Warwick top and solo queue, where they take Barrier. Really powerful at maintaining low HP, which is where Warwick thrives if you can utilize the summoner spell. But you can actually take Exhaust into certain matchups such as Cannon, but other than that, I would just stick to Barrier every single game. Moving on to the item builds. Now, as for your starting item, you might be surprised not to see Doran's Shield there, but that's just because Warwick's sustain is so high, you don't ever need to buy it. You can just go D-Blade in the majority of your matchups, and Brute Force Pro, and get it so much sustain and base whenever you want. But I have seen the rank 1 Warwick go D-Ring as his starting item into really hard AP range tops like a Teemo or a Cassiopeia. In that case, he'll go D-Ring for the extra sustain from having more AP on the champion. But the rank 2 Warwick, actually, he goes D-Blade no matter what, regardless of his matchup, so he's not a fan of it. And I'm not just going to say, hey, the rank 1 guy goes D-Ring, rank 2 doesn't, copy the rank 1 guy. Definitely something you can mess around with if you're a Warwick player, but if you're playing it for the first time, you can keep it simple. D-Blade into pretty much every matchup, but you can go D-Ring into really hard range lane bullies. Now for the boots, going to be pretty straightforward. Defensive boots, tabbies into heavy AD comps, Merc treads into heavy AP, or a lot of crowd control. So if they have Sejuani, Leona jungle at support, or like a Fiddlestick somewhere, maybe even if you're versus a Jace top, you might not want to upgrade your boots right away, wait until you get the Merc treads later on, but typically you're going to be going tabbies if you can, especially if enemy top jungle are AD. Now for your first item, it's going to be either Blade of the Ruined King, or Stridebreaker, depending on your matchup. And when or where is pretty straightforward. You can go Blade into the majority of melee matchups. So if you've Camille, Fiora, champion like Dr. Mundo, especially, you can go Bork, and you can go Stridebreaker into pretty much every range matchup. You can go Stride into certain melees where you want to be kiting them around. Like a Jax, it's pretty hard to just auto attack him to death. But typically, you're going to be going Stride into Bork or Bork into Stride in pretty much every single game you play. The exception to that being is if you verse a really heavy melee dive comp, you can go Bork into Titanic Hydra instead of Stridebreaker. So if you verse a bunch of melee champs that are coming forward, you don't really need the Stridebreaker added slow or anything like that. So if you verse a high range comp, definitely you want Stridebreaker first or second if your matchup's melee. And if you're versus a heavy melee dive comp, you can just go Titanic Hydra second, and Spirit Visage is for those really heavy AP comps. So let's say you versus Cassiopeia top. It's too easy, Cassiopeia top AP jungle. Let's say Cassiopeia top regular jungle like Elite Sin, but they have a strong AP mid like Hui. In that case, you can go Spirit Visage. Since Cassio is pretty uncommon, you can go Visage versus like a Teemo, Vladimir, stuff like that. It can be a great second item for you. And the reason I've got the Kraken Slayer there, the number 1 walk doesn't do it, but the second walk is a big fan at building Kraken Slayer in matchups where you do need to be able to fight for an extended period of time, but they're not really going to be building HP. So the two that stand out is Tryndamere and Camille, where you need to be able to take a long trade against these champions to beat them down. But if you think about Tryndamere's build, Ravenous Hydra into the Quick Blades, and Camille, Triforce into Rev Hydra, very squishy champions. You don't really need the percentage HP of Borg, so Kraken Slayer can give you a lot of extra damage against those types of champs. But typically, if you want to keep it simple, Borg into Stride versus heavy melee comp, and Stride into Borg if you verse a bunch of range champs. And to finish off the build, you don't have that much variety. Typically, your build's going to be Bork Stride or Stride Bork, and to Unending Despair, Spirit Visage. Whatever order depends on if they have heavy AP or heavy AD, but your armor item's going to be Unending Despair, and your MR item is going to be Spirit Visage. So you can imagine how much sustain Warwick has in his kit combined with Blade of the Ruin King, and then Spirit Visage and Unending Despair, pretty much becoming a drain tank in the late game. You never really want to be building a damage item. The reason I have Titanic Hydra here is if you went Spirit Visage third, and you still don't really need armor, you can go Titanic Hydra then, but most of the time, 2 damage items from your first 2, and then full drain tanky items. But you can go Rangers, of course, if you verse a Tryndamere top Yone mid, heavy crit damage, and Abyssal Musk can be good just as a cheap option, especially if you have AP champs on your team playing well, but typically it is going to be that Unending Despair, Spirit Visage, Broken combo, and then rounding off your final item with Jaksho the Protein like I've got down below as that example. Now, even though this is more of a review of the best Challenger Warwick players compared to a full guide, there are still some really important points about Warwick's kit that I want you to understand before we start reviewing the laning phase, especially if you're planning to queue up and play Warwick after this video. Now, the main point is how Warwick functions when him and his opponent are low HP. So for those of you who don't know, Warwick does on-hit magic damage based on his level per auto attack, and if he's below 50% HP, he'll heal 100% of the post-mitigation damage of that magic damage, but if he's below 25% HP, that'll actually be increased to 250% healing of that damage, which is why it probably feels when you play up against Warwick. He's low HP, he feels relatively unkillable, his sustain is increased significantly when he's below 25% HP, which is why it's also important that you don't use your barrier until you're low HP, below 25%, so that you can get the maximum value from that healing. Now, if your opponent is low HP, if they're below 50%, you are going to get from rank 1W 70% bonus attack speed when attacking that target specifically. So if your opponent's half, but let's say you attack the jungler, you're not going to get that attack speed. And if you switch from your opponent to the jungler, when the jungler's above 50% HP, for example, you'll lose that attack speed straight away. So it's really important you focus the champion that is low HP, which is why if you're playing up against Warwick and you're both low HP, you're probably going to lose that 1v1 because 70% bonus attack speed from a rank 1 ability is pretty mental, especially if you're healing based on auto attack. So imagine you're 25% HP, healing 250% of your magic on hit damage with 70% bonus attack speed, relatively broken, and something else. If your opponent is below 25% max HP, that attack speed is increased by 200%. So 140% attack speed as a rank 1 ability if your opponent is low, and 200% of the bonus move speed as well. You also get the movement speed if they're low, so 35 increased to 70 if they're below 25% HP, so relatively broken. So be really mindful if you're playing up against this champion. You need to be staying above 50% HP and making sure you don't get baited when Warwick is below 50 or 25% HP, especially if he has his barrier up. It's going to be really hard for you to burst him in the majority of matchups. And on top of Warwick's W and passive being so strong, especially in a 1v1 scenario, combined with Warwick's E, is another reason why this champion is so hard to kill when he's low HP, because your E, before you activate the Fear, will give you 35% damage reduction rank 1, so if you hold on to that until you're low HP, you can stay in that low HP threshold for a really long time, with 35 damage reduction combined with Barrier and the healing. Really hard to kill this champion when he's low HP. So this is a big reason, Warwick's W and E being so powerful, why the good Warwick players only go 3 points in Q early for early trading, and then they max W into E max when maxing Q last, and putting a point in ulti whenever they can. Next up, we're going to be reviewing the laning phase. Now, because Warwick is one of the strongest melee laners in the entire game, it's important that you can explode your lane consistently if you're planning to play him. So because of that, we're going to be breaking down so many different matchups from both of our Warwick players to see how they do so consistently. Now, we'll start with an easy one, Warwick up against a Mundo. So because Mundo's level 1 is so weak and Viego's level 1's not that strong, he invades level 1, but something very disastrous happens to him. He invades a little bit too late, so Viego's able to get level 2 and just flashes onto him and kills him. Now, not only does he die, he lost barrier, flash, and his potion, and a bunch of XP because he doesn't have TP. So if you're playing any other normal champion, let's say you're Jax or Fiora right now, you're probably pretty sad. But on Warwick, doesn't mind whatsoever. You can see why. Level 1 versus 2 just runs and starts trading straight away. The reason for that, he doesn't mind being low. Warwick's healing goes crazy when he's low, but he wants Mundo to be half HP or below so that he can abuse his W. So most Warwicks go W level 2 in the majority of matchups, and you'll see why very shortly. Waits for level 2, not afraid to take some damage, gets level 2, goes in straight away. So Q's onto him there, and just starts bashing him down. You can see his attack speed going crazy from the W passive attack speed, and the movement speed as well. We can stick onto him and just easily solo kills him down a level especially. So sticks around, because sustain is so high, you don't really need a base, and with presence of mind combined with the sustain from your passive, you can stay in lane for a long time. So Mundo comes back with Rejuve being not the most impressive buy of all time, and he just fights straight away. Level 3, half HP versus full HP Mundo, and just starts fighting him. You can see he uses his E when he's very low HP, so that he's gaining the damage reduction while he's below 25% HP to get the passive threshold, and just kills him yet again. So completely unbeatable melee champion in lane. If we skip it again, he's guaranteed to kill him one more time, rushing into that Blade of the Ruined King, and now Mundo has just sit 2 screens away and chuck Qs, but against Warwick that can be tricky, just starts fighting him here, pops the passive, you can see as soon as he leaves tower, pops ulti onto him when he's above half HP even, and just bursts him. So such a powerful champion if you know the limitations of him, and you can see just how powerful he was despite that bad early game start. So before we break down some more matchups, I wanted to showcase his level 1 strategy, and a game where it actually went well, because it's a really important tactic to know when playing this champion. And we can see here, he's playing up against Irelia. If you're wondering why the idea is different, he's playing on a Smurf account. He likes to not just play decay games mainly on a 1600 LP account, but definitely the same guy. And we can see Warwick versus Irelia Elise. Elise Irelia really weak level 1, so he just runs in straight away. And this time the blue buff is 1600 HP, not 900, so Elise can't just burst it like the Viego did last game, and he can just focus a low HP target, just stick onto Irelia the whole time, just keep bashing her down. Irelia flashes away, pops barrier when he's low, but he's still able to get the kill, even comes back in, Qs the blue buff to heal, and just sticks. So you can see how high your sustain can be. 40 HP per auto attack when you're below 25% HP. Level 1, relatively insane, can just 1v2 them off the buff. For our next matchup, we have Warwick versus Aatrox. Now, something I found interesting in this game is even though he's playing blue side and top lane up against a strong 3 camping jungler like Volibear, who can do Raptors Red Golems or Raptors Golems Red into a top gank, he didn't even ward level 1. Now, that's either because he's really confident he can outplay the gank, or because he's gone away with it so much in the past, level 1 warding's not even the thing he likes to do. Either way, I found it pretty funny, as most champions, let's say you're playing Camille or Renekton or Aatrox here, if you don't ward level 1 and you're playing as aggressive as he does, you're probably going to die. So going back to the matchup, we can see, as usual, making it as volatile as possible, just fighting him in the wave, trying to heavy trade, get both of them low HP, so that when he takes level 2 and he gets his W, he can abuse the bonus attack speed from his opponent being below half HP, and also, when he's low HP, he gets a lot of value from his passive sustain, so even a losing trade is going to benefit Warwick more, because he has way more sustain than pretty much any champ he's going to play against. So we can see he's zoning every single minion, making it as painful as possible for Aatrox to walk up without taking the Q, especially level 2. You can see he went in there just to really, every time he walks up, he's going to poke him. And now, not just for the bonus attack speed on hit, the bonus movement speed as well. So it's very easy for him to space between the wave and him and punish Aatrox every time he walks up, because now Aatrox is below half HP. Warwick, of course, has his movement speed boost. But here's the gank. Every top lane is Nightmare, level 3 jungle gank top. But you can see it doesn't actually matter. So tanks every single Q as well, starts fighting and tanks the combo, barriers the low HP, flashes out of the Volibear E, and he knows he needs level 3, so auto Q auto onto this minion, pops his E for the damage reduction when he's low HP, and just beats this guy down with lethal tempo and the W attack speed. So you can see how powerful this champion can be in the early game, especially if you can get both your opponents, while you and your opponent half or lower HP. You can not only maximize your power and that all in, but bait your jungler, the enemy jungler, in as well. So it comes back to lane here with the red buff. So again, he's just going to be pressuring as hard as he can. Here was just a bit of a time waster. Aatrox was staying here. He took a bad trade, but mainly Warwick was just trying to keep him interested, keep trading onto him, and play for a kill. But Aatrox managed to survive and eventually look for a recall. So you can see here, in terms of the mechanics of dodging abilities, Warwick Q can make you untargetable as you dash through. So you can see he actually dodges the Aatrox Q2 with Warwick Q. You can see very shortly Q1, Q2 dodges it with Q to avoid the Q2 there, and then just starts fighting him there. But now he tried to match recall, because if Aatrox spaces and TP's back, it's going to be bad for him. But because Aatrox stayed, he stuck around as well. So, of course, both players being low HP, it's going to benefit Warwick more, but if Aatrox bases and TP's back, and Warwick misses his recall, it's going to be bad, but he goes to stop his base. I think Aatrox goes for the kill here, even if that hit, that's not a kill, because the movement speed is way too high from W, so a little bit optimistic there. So we can see really hard forcing and trimming the wave as well. Really good wave control. He knows the wave's going to come back towards him, but he trims it as much as he can before he recalls, and just in time for Aatrox not to come back and stop his recall. But because he had TP, of course he's going to get the wave in, but he managed to trim it, so he didn't really miss that much. So now wave is in a good position, bouncing back, and he's level 6. He's got movement speed from support. So if you're playing against Warwick and you're playing another role, please don't be this calm. Please recall, because you can see very unplayable. how unplayable this matchup's going to be for the Aatrox very shortly. So every time a minion gets low HP, or yeah, every time a minion gets low HP, he runs at him to deny the XP. So fully runs at him and forces the trade. You can see the little micro movement here as well. He didn't just click onto him and Aatrox will click away. He clicked onto him. He clicked backwards to make Aatrox click back towards him. You can see very shortly. So clicks back, clicks forward, and Aatrox matches the click back. But because he's got that bonus movement speed from now Azir and Karma being low HP, he can just fight him. And now he got the Aatrox to close start below half HP and pops the ulti. So you can see starts fighting him, stacks up lethal tempo, gets a good trade, pretends he's going to run away. Aatrox follows him out, and then he ultis him just outside of tower range and gets a really good trade onto him. Auto Q auto and just beats him down here. Aatrox thinks he can kill because Warwick's 8 HP, but that's Warwick's comfort zone. So he's able to survive, and you can see 81, 84, so much HP per on him with the below 25% HP threshold. So he just keeps healing up off the wave, and eventually he's going to look for a kill on the Aatrox. So there, just runs at him and beats him down. So powerful, abusing that movement speed, you can see. So I'll slow it down a little bit. He's trying to punish every CS that Aatrox goes for. Aatrox walks up and he just one-shots him there. So you can see this champion's just so ridiculous in the early game. Definitely a champion I underestimated. And even though I still recommend warding level 1, it would be nice to know if the jungler's ganking or not to dictate how you're playing that 1v2. You can see it's pretty hard to gank because he has so much turn potential. Granted, you get both of your opponent to that low HP, or yourself and your opponent to that low HP threshold. For our next matchup, we have Vladimir. Now, I wanted to showcase an example of him playing up against a ranged champion, but you'll see very shortly his strategy is no different. Doran's Blade and playing full aggressive. Now, he does go Doran's Ring into certain AP counterpicks, like a Cassiopeia or a Teemo, but in relatively weak early game champs, like a Gnar or a Vladimir, he doesn't really go D-Ring, he just goes D-Blade, and you can see zoning the Vladimir away from his XP, because his level 1 is so powerful. So managed to get an XP lead straight away, right off the bat. So what he did was wait for the wave to come in, completely settle down, and then run at the Vladimir, just as the minions start to get low, and zone him away from the XP here. So starts fighting him. If Vladimir wants to get that XP, he'll give him full stacks of lethal tempo and get him chunked. You can see he's just standing there and taking damage, doesn't care whatsoever. He'll go for Qs if he wants to. Probably didn't mean to take that tower shot, but again, he's playing Warwick, doesn't really matter that much. So now, back into lane, just forcing onto trades as much as he can. You can see he mainly plays for the trades. This is definitely a champion that you don't want to play for perfect CS or anything like that. You're mainly playing to kill your opponent. So we can see, slowing down his push, again, wants to keep the wave in the center for as long as he can. Doesn't really play for a 3-wave crash cheater recall. That often it's mainly based around slow pushing as slowly as he can, building this big wave and trading and zoning as much as possible. But again, the enemy jungler sees a 200 and 300 HP top laner and thinks it's a gank, but you'll see that's not going to be the case. So from this point, 200 HP, still keeps his potion, by the way. You can see he likes to hold his potion for when he goes for an all-in or a 1v2, something like that, because you don't want to be potting up and healing too high HP, because you won't be getting that 25% bonus threshold. So goes for a Q auto there, takes a tower shot yet again, and Vi comes in, pops his E very shortly, barrier at low HP, holds onto his E this whole time actually, pops it now, and he's able to get the Vi there. So you can see just keeps beating him down, keeps abusing the passive, and such a powerful champion from low HP, goes for the 1v2 double kill. So we'll play that back again and see the order of how he's using his abilities. So we'll put it on his vision. Of course, he didn't expect Vi. No level 1 with your horde yet again, just holding on to it. But if he's not getting punished for it, he doesn't need to change it. So here we can see Vi flies in. Doesn't actually either Q straight away. I'm assuming he would like to. He probably didn't expect the gank to come straight away. But it takes a big burst, pops his barrier, goes for the auto Q auto. Pops his E now when they're both next to him, and he's able to get the fair onto Vi, and just focusing the target that's below half HP. It's really important that your target selection, it shouldn't be, oh, I want to focus jungle or focus top. It's mainly based around who is low HP, because if they're below 50% HP, like this Vi here, especially if Vlad was healthy, and also Vlad had W, so it's hard to stick onto him. You can see his attack speed's about to go crazy as he hits the Vi from below half HP, right up to 1.4%. So that's how he's able to turn these 1v2 so frequently, focusing the same guy, getting them below half HP, and abusing his W, passive, and barrier all in one go. Up next, we have Warwick versus Rumble, and this is actually our rank 2 Warwick player, currently 1000 LP on the Korean ladder, so definitely really high mastery on the champion as well, and his playstyle is extremely similar. So Rumble's a very powerful early game champion, but you can see he's not afraid to scrap and just take damage. This is unnecessary damage, but it doesn't matter. You can see he just starts fighting in between the wave and the tower yet again, and you'll see very shortly, he starts to block every single harpoon the Rumble shoots at him. He's looking for Qs as well, but you'll see he'll emote on purpose to block the CS to deny any CS that the Rumble can get, so making sure if you do play this champion up against champs like Mundo and Rumble, they can farm from a distance, that you're blocking their skill shots and just healing it back, because you can see he heals so much per passive auto that he doesn't care if he gets poked or not, he's just going to heal all that harass back. So because Rumble's such a strong champion and good at short trades here, you can see he starts to poke him down quite heavily and put him into lethal range, but that's why he's hitting the wave quite a lot, where our previous Warwick player liked to keep the wave here for a long time, but he needs to continuously heal from hitting the wave, so that's why he's going to be going through a 3-wave crash in this game. Now Rumble blocks the wave, starts poking him, makes him take a tower shot, so really good positioning by Rumble here in the perfect spot to block the casters from reaching tower, but not the cannon or melee, and if Warwick cues him, he took a tower shot as we just saw, and goes for the kill. So goes for the flash auto, but really good reaction time from our Warwick player here, gets the barrier up, and goes for a ward because he knows now. Rumble no flash, Warwick has flash advantage, the wave pushing back towards him, he knows he's going to be planning to play aggressive, so he's going to be looking to get this wave in, let the wave come back in, and play for the kill. You see no interest in basing, trying to cheese him here, but because he doesn't have his W passive from anyone, the Rumble's team is playing quite well, they're all above half HP, he's unable to reach him there. But now Rumble has lethal onto him because he doesn't have barrier, so he does have to play respectful, let the wave come back in, but now that Rumble just wasted Q, he can walk up and heal. So he gets a couple autos down, Rumble Qs back up, so he's going to click away and goes for the fight here. So it starts fighting below 25% HP, you can see even versus Rumble, if you abuse your E, the damage reduction combined with being below 25% HP, you can stay alive for a really long time. So continuously hitting the wave here while Rumble is on bad fury, bad heat, he can't really go for an all-in, so he's using that timer to sustain. And we'll see Viego very shortly popping his head out of this bush. So normally he would definitely go for the all-in on this timer, but of course we'll just die from a gank there, so respects, but he will go for it very shortly. So keeps the wave here, you can see chases him down, it's just how powerful this W passive can be, and flashes onto him. So he's able to get the kill here, we'll play his combo back, he blocks the wave from hitting tower, run straight at the Rumble here, and we can see flash into E to prep his E because you can't E2 straight away, very similar to Jax actually, and then goes for the auto, Q, auto, very common from both our Warwick players, pops the E, auto, just beats him down. The extra attack speed you can see from his W gives him lethal here, where if you see 0.71, the second he auto attacks the Rumble here, 1.2, so such a powerful ability and really good lethal, and the understanding of his champion's limits there. And for our final matchup, we have Warwick up against a Cannon, so a really wide variety of matchups. And if you're wondering what our Warwick players are banning, our player right here, the rank 2 Warwick, he bans Na every single game, and the rank 1 Warwick bans Aurora every game. So really annoying range counter picks is going to be the problem for Warwick, but you can see even up against a Cannon, he's going to be able to gain a big lead. So again, forcing a big trade level 1, you can see a lot of one tricks especially, but especially Warwick players, they have a pattern that they follow. So if they're on red side, look to attack the blue buff. If there's no invade, just attack level 1, try to zone from the tower and the minions. So really common formula to follow on this champion. So keeps hitting the wave here, abusing the sustain. So you can see this Warwick's mainly about crashing waves and making the wave come back, compared to our previous Warwick player, who like to keep the wave in the center for a really long time. So pretty interesting difference in playstyle. So we can see he's just hard pushing the wave, continuously hitting, getting hit by Kinnan the whole time, but out healing it with his passive autos. So if you hate playing up against ranged champions, I'm not saying Warwick is the ultimate counter to range chops, but he definitely does a lot better into them than most melees. So we can see he gets his ward down as he's planning to play aggressive on this timer, and just keeps healing. So bashing the wave down, nothing special, just out sustaining the Kennen auto attacks from his passive and just keeping the wave pushed in, and Kennen goes for a big trade here. Of course, this is the sweet spot, 40 HP Warwick, so flashes onto him here. So flash into auto Q, pops the stun, and he trades flashes like we talked about, barrier into Kennen, really good answer. So we'll play his combo back a bit slower, as we can see. The cannon starts to chase him down. He pops E early, flash into Q to get the healing straight away, instead of auto Q where it would have been a bit slower, because he doesn't have barrier in this game. Keeping in mind, he has exhaust, so he has to rely on his Q healing and that timer, and then onto auto, E auto, beats him down, pops exhaust to stay in range, and burns the cannon flash. So a really good turn there, flashing not for the kill, just for the chunk, and you can see it's going to pay off very shortly. Pushes the wave in, abuses the W, and just runs up and chomps his head off. So even up against range champions, you can see the sustain can out-sustain their poke, and as long as you are able to get an early game lead on this champion, the majority of matchups you play against are definitely going to be doable. Moving on to the mid game. Now, the mid game is relatively straightforward on this champion. You just want to make sure you're not split pushing too much, as you do spike the hardest between that 1 to 2 item point. You're mainly just going to be pushing outside wave and looking for an attack on the enemy, especially if you can abuse your W passive, like shown in this clip now in this game here. Our boy did not do too well in lane. He's 1 in 3, but you can see his plan doesn't change. He's not trying to farm his item or anything like that. He's looking for an attack and comes in for the flank, ulti, and to instantly disengage, and then he can still abuse how strong this champion is at low HP to get multiple kills here. So go straight back to top and push out the wave and looks to repeat the process all over again. So I'll skip it a little bit. You can see he doesn't really change his pattern at all. Goes bottom, one shots the wave, and with the stride break AoE, and straight away just runs and looks to attack the enemy. So making sure you're not side laning too much. He has to catch waves in this game because he lost lane to Nah, but in a game where you win lane, you can just get prio, push the lane in, and look for the same type of play here, especially if you arrive to the fight kind of halfway through and abuse your W passive. You can make it on time, and you can be the difference maker in these types of skirmishes. So we'll see one more time. His pattern will never change. Go top. Somebody fights him inside. Of course, this champ's still really strong at this point. He wanted to buy his bulk, but doesn't need it. It's a smolder. So he just beats this guy up here, even though he has 225 stacks at 20 minutes. Pretty impressive. But nonetheless, beats him up. Looks for the flank here. So he plays this really well as well. He doesn't just tunnel on getting the kill. He knows they're going to be trying to peel him off. So you can see clicks back, trying to bait out the Viego W this whole time. Clicks up, clicks to the side. So you can see as long as you can get somebody half HP, especially if they get low, you can abuse the movement speed so well to just constantly put pressure on the opponents and create this type of flank angle that you want to be achieving in the mid game. Now, another common trend that you'll see from his mid-games on Warwick is being really involved in the early skirmishes. So you can see a big wave about to crash onto his tower, doesn't care, runs straight into the enemy red looking for a fight. You'd see how powerful he's going to be at this point. Later, the Ruined King spike, even though the enemy team's all quite far ahead, we'll see very shortly he can be the difference maker. So walks in here, just starts fighting straight away. It is Warwick, there's nothing mechanically that's going to stand out in his team fighting, but mainly just going to be hitting whoever you can, especially if they're below half HP, and trying to sustain. And a lot of the time when you approach a team fight early, especially if you're going to use that movement speed, trying to get a pick with your ulti is the main things you're looking to do in the mid game, especially around team fighting. And for our final example, I wanted to break down a team fight where I was really impressed by his understanding of how to get a lot of value from his champion in a team fight, even though Warwick's not really a good team fighting champion. So we'll see. I'll skip through here. He just kills the Mundo, but the reason I showed it, he used his ulti to get that kill. So he's approaching a team fight with no ulti, no flash, but he still was able to be very impactful despite that fact. So we can see him approaches the fight, gets hooked from the bush, I'm pretty sure. So I'll play it at 1 time speed, gets hooked from the bush, pops his Z up straight away for damage reduction, and kites it out. So now from this point, half HP Warwick with no ulti, no flash, it's pretty hard for you to go in. You're just not just going to go in and beat people down and get away with it. They're just going to easily kill you and give Viego resets, especially. So he waits out. So at the very beginning, when he got hooked in, he kited out. He waited for all the major abilities to be used. Viego ulti, Aurora ulti, all these big spells, playing it slowly. And then he goes back in now, starts fighting the Viego, the primary target, as if Viego keeps resetting. That's going to be hard. But then you can see abusing the extra movement speed from people being half HP and kiting around the fight. So he's observing, he's walking, he's approaching around here, dodges the skill shot as well. So really good abuse of the W speed, gets hooked in, but abusing his W and his barrier to block the majority of that damage. So even though he did start off the fight chunked with no ulti, you can see he's really I'd say proficient at abusing the movement speed to be just on the outskirts of the fight and threatening the opponents, getting the cheeky Qs in when he can, and making it really hard and awkward for them to fight freely without having to respect this champion that's just boosting around at so much movement speed that has high damage. But because if you do go and you will get one shot a lot of the time, you do have to play it quite slowly and abuse that MS to put as much pressure on your opponents as you can, and especially using it to dodge skill shots as well. So I'd say the champion's kit is not that mechanically intensive, but you do need to have relatively good mechanics to get the most amount of value from his movement speed. But if you can do that, and if you play the fight slow enough, you can see how impactful it can be. Alright team, that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I am planning to make this more of a series where I cover a bunch of different strong champions this week that maybe aren't picked that often. So if there's any champion you'd like to see me cover next, now's your chance. Let me know in the comments below, and I'll cover any champion that gets enough requests. But other than that, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all next time.